black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live recovered on purpose.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Recovered on Purpose show. Really excited about our guest today. We've got Jared Roy Miller here to talk about his story of going from a college athlete to a head coach, a head football coach by the age of 24. And then by the age of 27, he had his full-blown addiction. And by the age of 28, he was homeless. And guys, coming back from something like that, going from an athlete to a head coach to full-blown addiction and then having a big fall, that's something that a lot of us can understand. And we're going to hear his story, how he overcame all that, and then how he's doing what he's doing now by going around speaking, serving. He's a counselor in the field as well. So guys, without further ado, I want to introduce you to my boy, Jared Roy Miller. Jared, thanks so much for being here, brother.
What up? What's going on, Vibe? How are you, man?
Doing awesome. It's a little bit rainy here in Colorado today. I was hoping to have a little bit better weather to go out and ride the motorcycle, but we'll do that tomorrow.
I've been following you, and I saw you got that R1, dude, and I'm jealous, bro. That looks like a whole lot of fun. So that's too bad it's raining today, but another day.
Yeah, I took it to a meeting last night, and apparently there's a recovery motorcycle club here in Colorado. So on Sunday, I actually get to go up to the mountains with a whole bunch of people in recovery on motorcycles. So,
dude, I love that. That's what this thing's all about, right? Like,
right.
Getting out, getting involved, finding out there's a motorcycle group in recovery. Like, that's awesome, bro. That is so cool. Like, you literally live, what I try to go by, like, get out, get active, get involved. Like, that's awesome, man. That's way cool.
Amen. And I just had this conversation with a guy that is doing something called Resurface. And what he does is he has these retreats for people in recovery or post-traumatic stress, those kinds of things. And what he does is he has these retreats in California, in London, in Hawaii, where they go and they actually surf. And then after they surf, they get themselves in flow state. And then they go and have their meetings, or they have their therapy sessions and stuff. And they said that it goes super, super deep. So I might have just had a little motorcycle idea to go have a little motorcycle club and then do a meeting on the top of a mountain. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, that is awesome. I love that. How do I get involved in that, guy? I want to go do some surfing and get in some
flow. Come on out here, bro. resurfaceuk.com. Check that out.
I'm gonna write that down. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool,
so, bro,
man.
Before, I'm really stoked on hearing your story. I was a football player myself. I fell off the wagon a little bit before I was able to take any scholarships or anything. But tell me a little bit about where you were at that time, and were you using during your football career, or how did this all start?
Yeah, great question. So no, it's funny because I can remember back in high school, when the cool thing was to get into drinking and smoking pot and all that. And I would get upset when my friends would do that because we had a really good team. My age group was phenomenal. We hadn't lost a game in 2 years. And so I can remember getting really mad at my buddies when they would be doing that stuff, kind of judge, jury, and executioner. Right. And so that might still be a character defect. But anyways, so I shattered my ankle when I was in high school. And when I say shattered, I mean shattered it. Wow. And I ended up having to have multiple surgeries. And I have a rod and a plate and some screws still in my ankle to this day. And that was kind of the birth, I would say. In the field, we say you're pre-wired for addiction, right? Some people will take a Dilaudid or a lower tab and it makes them feel sick and they're just not interested. For me, I can remember taking it and feeling like I was Superman, dude. Right. If I could have this feeling forever, I would be just fine. Yeah. And I think even before all that, I can remember being just like a nervous kid, right? Having a lot of nervous energy, feeling a lot of pressure, feeling a lot of, like, I remember getting checked out for school and going to the dentist and being like so worried about what was I missing in school and my homework and just, just rampant mind, if that makes sense. So anyways, I got that ankle injury, but I still had a lot of things that I think are super important. I still had a sense of a tribe community, right? I was still playing football, still very active. I had acceptance by my football team. I had love by people around me, and I had purpose, right? And so for those reasons, I can remember feeling like a euphoria feeling and thinking like, man, this is right. I have arrived, but it wasn't something that I actively pursued from that point on, just simply because I had a healthy life. Like outside of that, I had a lot of good stuff going on for me. So I took them, and I actually even remember like not even taking the full prescription, and kind of therein lies the problem, is I had them laying around, and I just jumped right back into rehabbing my ankle and getting back to playing sports. I shattered my ankle my junior year of high school. So yeah.
So I love that you brought up that, you still had this healthy life and this healthy purpose, and you use those three words, the love, the purpose, the tribe, and that's something that they've done studies on also, is like, it isn't necessarily that we get addicted to the substance, as much as it is like the isolation and needing to fill this void, right? So how did it progress from having those things, having the tribe, having the love, having the passion, the purpose, to falling out of all that?
So I would say that it really set in, man. For me, my story starts with loss. That's my biggest trigger, right? Is loss. See, I was able to play college football, played 2 years at Snow, finished up at Weber State, graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2008. And I took a job as a teacher and a coach, worked my way up to be a head football coach. But my first year being a head football coach, something happened. I got a call. My dad had not had very good health, and he had only been given a certain amount of time to live. And I'm like, you guys have been saying that since forever, right? Like, he's tough as nails. Like, this old man's not going nowhere. And my mom was like, no, really, like, it's happening. And so I experienced the loss of my dad, and I just remember not being able to sleep, super troubled, way too tough to talk to anybody. If you'd have told me to go talk to a grievance counselor, I'd have laughed in your face, right? Because the ego was way too high for that. And so I started to self-medicate, man. Like, I remember, and it started at night. I literally can remember the exact night. I'm laying in my front room on the couch watching like CSI or just something dumb. And it's like 3 a.m. and I thought, this is ridiculous. Like, if I can't slow down these negative feelings, and if I can't, I got to be able to function. I got to be able to go to work. Right. And then I remember thinking, like, when I had physical pain, I would take some the opiates, and I could sleep like a baby. So therein lied the first, negative thought down the rabbit hole. So I started taking them at night to be able to sleep. And then before I knew it, it was like any emotion that I felt that I wasn't comfortable with, or if we won a football game, it basically just started to become any excuse really to take them, I would take them. And look, it's not like I honestly wasn't trying to get high. I was just trying to escape emotions. I would take them like Skittles, dude. I wasn't crushing them, snorting them, none of that crazy stuff. Like, I was just taking them. I was just taking more than prescribed, and I was no longer being prescribed.
Right.
So that's when it kind of got out of control. And after I burned through my stockpile of the stuff I had left over, I got a rod in my ankle, dude. I go to the doctor, and he looks at my x-rays and goes, what do you want? Right. I mean, right. And it also didn't help that, like, his son's my shortstop. And so I go in there, all I mention is I have pain, and we start talking about sports. And next thing I know, I'm leaving the doctor's office with the script, like, super proud of myself. Like, oh, I just pulled one over on him,
Right.
So that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, that was actually the start of my full blown, like, I remember knowing the difference between when I was partying and everything in high school, because I was drinking, I was smoking weed, and I was doing drugs in high school, but I was partying, I was having fun, right? Mm-hmm. But then after my my best friend's suicide, like I remember that was like the turning point from when I was using it to get high and to have fun and to get into party, to shifting, using it to cope with these emotions, using it for solution to life, right? The thoughts that I was having, the feelings I was having, and the emotions. And I think that especially, I mean, I don't want to say especially as men, but like you said, like if someone would tell you to go to a grief counselor, like what young man is going to say, okay, let me go to a grief counselor, right? So we almost need to like normalize it being okay to talk about these things, because a lot of us go through stuff in silence, and then it turns out to what's happening in your life at this time. So what happens from there?
And I appreciate you point that out. I actually, just real quick, I love like NF and Whit Lowry and some of these newer, younger artists that are making it okay to be able to talk about mental health struggles, because little do people know substance use disorder, it is a mental health disorder, just like schizophrenia, bipolar, right? See, yeah, like it's a mental health disorder. So from there, it basically progressed within the time. I'll give you the, you know, the long and the short, because I'm sure nobody wants me to turn this into a full-blown autobiography. Right. And I love to talk about my life in recovery today. But for relatability, yeah, like from there, it just got worse, man. It just snowballed. Within the time span of 3 years, I experienced the death of my dad, and then my substance use disorder got super bad. And because of that, I can take accountability for it. My wife asked me for a divorce, which is completely understandable. You know, I was emotionally unavailable. I was numbing out. I take accountability for that, man. I ruined a marriage. And so that's grief in and of itself, right? I tried to get help. I was doing the deal, and eventually that became too much, and I lapsed. And then when my brother passed away, I really went super deep into it. And yeah, eventually got to the point where I was living at home with my mom, dude. And, you know, here I am, bachelor's degree, head football coach. Rough, bro. My life had become unmanageable, you know, the unmanageability. And so my mom kicked me out. She said, hey, pack a bag. Like, you can't stay here, you know? And I'm sure that was super hard for her, but it ended up, I jumped on the front runner and basically went down to Rio Grande, Salt Lake City area, and was homeless. I was homeless for a period of time. And I don't really like going into like the war story and because for me, there's some PTSD there. There's some trauma there. Like I've seen some things being homeless, and I've experienced some things being homeless that I don't get into because I've worked through that with a therapist, and it's not productive for anybody.
Right. But
I went through some really tough stuff, and July 3rd of 2004, I decided I'd had enough, and I tried taking my own life through a suicide, or I tried committing suicide through an overdose, basically. And that's dark and heavy, right? But that put me on my road to recovery. So in a way, like today, sitting here 7 years later, thank you, Mom, right? Like maybe I would not have changed, right? If she would not had to show me tough love. And I basically was arrested for possession. I got sentenced to a year in jail. I did 6 months of that year. I got early released to what's called the MRC Men's Recovery Center. And that really, yeah, man, that changed my life. I was broken, dude. And in a jail cell, I said probably my first honest prayer that I've ever said. And it was not like a humble arms folded on my knees. It was a frustrated snot running down my face, yelling, you know, I'm sure they were probably ready to commit me to an insane asylum, but it was an honest prayer. And, I basically said, look, God, if it's not my time to come home, if I can't leave this reality, then give me purpose. Let me live for something. Like if it's not my time to go, give me a direction.
Yeah. And
slowly over time, when I let go and let God, is kind of cliche as that is, I've found that purpose, and he's put me on the path that I'm on today.
Amen. Amen. And that's something really, really interesting that I've heard from basically everyone that tells me their story of recovery. There's this moment where they cry out to God, or they say something to God, right? And it's interesting because every single one that I hear is a different experience. Like some are like yours, like frustrated or angry. I had an angry moment. My last moment, I had him in like hitting the roof of a car and stuff, and that's where it happened, right? And I think that's kind of what a lot of people outside of relationship with God kind of don't understand about relationship with God. It's like there's no friendship, no relationship that we have that doesn't have this like this give and take, or this emotional like ride with it, right? And like you said, it's honesty, that realness, that it is a humble prayer to be frustrated and yelling and stuff, because it's like, what am I supposed to do here, right? So how did that get answered? You say that he started giving you purpose and things. What happened in that jail cell, and what happened from there that brought you up?
Yeah. I appreciate you give me the space here to tell you. But I want to point out real quick, for those of you that just heard the word God and got turned off, I want you to listen to me real quick, okay? Because I don't care if it's the universe. I don't care if you haven't found that for yourself or not. Because for a long time, I was mad at God, right? I just got done saying I gave just a horrific, frustrated, desperate prayer. And whatever your higher power is, like, I'm okay with that. I know for me, I have to give him, the God of my understanding, his credit. I have to give him his glory. Like, and that's important for me. So please be patient with me. I hope that didn't turn anybody off. So basically from there, it was a whole lot of struggle. Just because I asked for the cup to be lifted, if you will, doesn't mean that I was all of a sudden, cured. It is far from that. From that. I just simply got to a point where I got out of the way, and I had to learn to let go of control. I had to learn to trust the process. I was not too cool for treatment. I remember going in and like my bio, I bawled like a baby, dude. Like I knew I was broken, and I wasn't in there to try to like be Mr. Cool anymore. Like I knew that I was broken, and I knew I had to figure out how to fix myself with help from my higher power to be able to make it. And I see people nowadays, and until you get that self-efficacy, until you get that self-will, that desire within yourself, until your soul is lit on fire, like, I just don't know, because this thing we call addiction, it's mean, boy. It is mean. It will beat you up and take your lunch money, and it will not care. Yeah. So if you approach this thing with the mentality of, I'm going to dip my toe in the water and see how, it won't happen. I'm sorry. I love you, and I hope that you make it. But unless you're all in, it's going to be hard. So I got to that point, and I went to treatment. I did 3 months of inpatient, 3 months of outpatient, took some humbling jobs, right? Took recommendations, took low stress jobs, worked for temp agencies, had to swallow my pride, went from working at one point as a head football coach to being a janitor to junior high, working construction jobs. It was just whatever I could, man. But every step along the way, the fellowship, right? I would meet people in the fellowship that would help me level up. They would spiritually, financially, community, like socially, they would help me level up. And I was humble, and I would listen to what they had to say. The thing, I guess, that I'm so passionate about this now is sometimes I see these young cats, and it's like, you can't tell them nothing because they already know everything. Yep. And it's like, you got to humble yourself to rebuild your life. And if ego is there, if you're full of ego's edging God out. That's what it means to me today. And so if your cup's already full, I can't give you nothing. Right. So that's
something that I took on in my recovery, and something that I had to I can't remember if it was just like intuition for me, or if it was something that I read or something, but like there were a lot of people within the fellowship or even within like church groups and things like that, that like when they would try to give me advice or try to feed me with something, I would intentionally block it out, right? But I looked for a few really good men that I aspired towards how they felt. I aspired towards how they thought, how they talked about God, how they were being of service to other people, married, how they treated their wife and their family. And I looked at how they lived their life and then hung on every word. And I didn't block anything out. And that's something that I think that we need to be mindful of and discerning of when we go into the fellowships, because even some meetings that I go to now with 40, 50 people in it, I have 3.5 years. And there's only 2, 3, 4 of us with over 3 years in these big ass meetings, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people sharing a lot of different things, right? And a lot of us continue to relapse, and the revolving door is just continually going and going and going and going. I think it's important that we love everybody and we listen to the right ones also, especially there. I mean, we're a lot of sick people in recovery, bro. Yeah. And there's some really good advice in there, and some stuff we just need to be mindful of, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was a big part of my early recovery was just staying humble and listening to the advice that I got from people, and just constantly having to remind myself that Jared died on July 3rd of 2014. Like Amen. my life is out of my hands at this point. It's whatever God's will is for me, and I got to get out of the way, and I got to let him captain the ship. Like it's crazy, but there's got to be that steps to surrender. Like I had to surrender. I had to give up this idea that I was in control of my life, because I got myself in the mess. I for sure wasn't going to get myself out. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you start walking with God. You start doing this. You're starting to do construction jobs. You're starting to do these things. And I started with a busing job, right? And started with this stuff also. So how does it go from there? Because now you're 7 years into this thing, and now you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And I think that's what a lot of people in early recovery, I was one of them, where I couldn't see how far God was going to take me, because he was making me do all of these little things right now, right? All these little things I had to do. I had no idea I was going to have Recovered on Purpose, a book, a business, and all these things in 3.5 years, right? So how does this start progressing for you from having these jobs to doing what you're doing now?
So that just totally, like, a verse hit me so hard when you said that. Matthew 6 verse 8. How do the lilies grow in the field, bro? Like, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, look it up, right? Like how, yeah, just check it out. So basically from there, it was self-discovery. This whole 7 years has been self-discovery and trusting that God has control of the will. For a long time, I thought to myself, I've just got to make a ton of money, right? And so I went and I constantly was chasing money. Well, I got to a point where I'm working in the oil fields, making stupid money, and I'm still unhappy. I'm still unfulfilled. Maybe I'm probably less happy than I ever have been. And so when you get to a point where you think, okay, I will be happy when, and then you get there and you're still not happy. Yeah. That's eye-opening, right? Yep. So for me, it was self-discovery. A lot of things, God put a lot of things in my path, man. Like, to be honest, one of the books that first, People and Books that changed my life. One of the first books that really changed my life was the book Extreme Ownership by Jacko Willings and Leif Babin. Because I remember Vibe, like I was probably a couple years abstinent, right? Like, I'll say that. I was white knuckling it. I was holding on almost in just oppositional defiance. Like, my ex-wife says I'm always going to be an addict. I've had this label, right? I feel like people don't understand me. So for a long time, I was just an abstinence, dude. And that book really opened my eyes, because for the first time I realized that I was sober, but I was still very sick. I was still very sick. And until I started taking accountability for the things that I had done, like, I was in the victim pool. I was being a victim of how other people treated me. I was being a victim of my own life. And so that book really helped change my life. You know, a conversation used to go with my mom, "Hey, Jared, where are you at?" "Well, I'm at the gym." "But are you really at the gym?" You know, "Mom, that's frustrating." And I would just go off. Well, after reading this book, I came to the conclusion, who taught her to think that way? I did. My mom and my family they don't trust me because I have conditioned them not to trust me. That's my fault. And I get to take accountability for that. I get to take accountability for ruining my marriage, right? Before I came to all these conclusions, if you'd have listened to me back then, man, it was everybody else's fault. And I was just a big victim of my circumstances. So that really shifted my mind, taking accountability for things. There's a guy that I ran into, and I had him on my podcast today, Todd Sylvester. You know, he looked me dead in the face and he said, "Jared, you are not broken. You're not broken. When are you going to be enough?" You know, and just really challenged my mindset and challenged the narrative, the things that I would, the garbage that was going on in my head. And so it hasn't been an overnight process. And Vibe, like, that's the hardest thing, man. Everybody wants a quick fix. Yeah. Everybody, especially if you've been doing this thing, if you've gone through some jail time, I'm sure you have the same mentality of me. I've got all this time I have to make up for. I'm going to freaking,
go
guess
hard.
What? Yeah, life doesn't work that way. Yeah. Life doesn't work that way. And until you really start looking at your thought process and really start taking accountability and growing in education, growing in spirituality, growing in maturity, you're white knuckling it.
Right. I mean, there's times in my recovery for sure where I'm white knuckling it. Just because there's times in my recovery where God, like, hold on a second. Like, I got some stuff I really need to do. Like, I have to sit down. I have to do this routine. I have to do this. I got to get this business going. I got to do this. Just hold on a second. Right. And the crazy thing is that I get to a point, like, chasing money or whatever. I don't think I was ever chasing money, but I've gotten to these points whenever I say, hold on, God, it always ends up with me crying at some point for something, right? And being like, I'm sorry, like, I miss you. Like, where have you been? It's like right here, And then when I into every process, right? When I bring him into that routine, when I bring him into the business, like, bro, I've sat down with people, like some really big people at a lunch, and stopped before we eat and prayed, because I'm not stupid to think that I'm here on my own time, right? Kind of like you. Like I died November 6th of 2015, right? And there's a lot that we get to do in recovery that we wouldn't have ever been able to do without being saved. And whether you're Christian or New Age, you talk to universe or Buddhist or whatever it is, like, we have to have this higher power that we're trusting in some way, right? Mm-hmm. And I think because I actually haven't sponsored one Christian yet. For some reason, like, all of my sponsees have either been atheist, agnostic, or something else, right? And I think it's beautiful that we're able to, like you were saying, like, we don't want you to run away. Like, this is our experience, right? But every single person, whether they're Christian or not, that I see that is actually, like, legitimately progressing, legitimately growing, legitimately like getting different thoughts and feelings inside of them, they're talking about God in the process. And like me, and it's hard sometimes because in recovery, we can, start taking the reins back. But I love how we just know the solution now, and we can bring him right back into it, bring him right back into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Vibe. Like, look, I guess here's my thought. A lot of people, through sharing my story, I hope that the listeners and the viewers, I hope that it touches some people's hearts, and I hope that they can draw some strength from it. But here's the honest to God truth, man. There's so many different modalities. There's so many different fellowships. There's so many different ways to do this thing. My blueprint might not fit you, right? And your blueprint, Adam, might not fit somebody else. What I would suggest is this. First of all, you have to find something. For us, it's God. You have to find something that is bigger than yourself, that you can place your trust in. Bigger than yourself. It definitely just has to be, if it's somebody, if your higher power is your sponsor, it has to be an entity that is greater than you. And I would say, get out and like try everything. Find out what your recovery looks like. Amen. Find out what works for you. Here's my beef, okay? When people sit back and they say, oh, NA, that doesn't work. Just a bunch of people, right? And then they say, oh, CR, celebrate recovery. That bunch of Christian weirdos, that religious stuff doesn't work for me. Oh, Dharma, people meditating and doing weird stuff, and oh, that doesn't work for. Well, then what does? Get off the sidelines. Stop poking fingers and pointing out every little thing that's wrong with everything, and try something. It's really easy to sit back and find the negative in everything. Humble yourself enough to give some of these things an honest chance, and like really give it a chance. Don't go to one fellowship meeting, sit in the back, not say anything, and then not connect with anybody before or after the meeting and walk away with an opinion on it, because you truly didn't try. You weren't actually present. Physically, you're there, but you weren't actually present. You weren't engaged. Right. So that would be kind of my takeaway is don't be afraid to get involved. And if my success is anything, and I've shared this before, I surround myself with amazing people. Yeah. I find a way to bring value. Okay. Like, I don't have millions of dollars. I'm not famous. But I find a way to bring value by service, by giving of myself, that puts me in circles with giants. Amen. Okay? Like people that you might not even recognize their name if I say it. Like, yeah, Dr. Terry Sellers, my co-host, dude, he's an addictionologist. Like, I have no business being really good friends with Terry Sellers if you look at us, but I bring value, right? Like, I'm not afraid to offer my services or do whatever I can do to bring value to these people. And then I learn, I absorb. If they say, Jared, read a book, I don't go, I'm not doing that. I don't got time for that. Guess what I do? I go read the damn book. Right. And I talk to him about it. Right. Yeah. Like that's the magic that I found, dude. I surround myself with amazing people. And how do I surround myself with those people? By asking this, not what can you do for me? What can I do for you?
Yes. Amen. And that's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier with, like, pick a few and watch their fruits. Like, watch the fruit of their life. You judge the tree by the fruit it bears, not the fruit it talks about. Right? There's so many people that can talk a really big game, but then you go to a restaurant with them and they're mean to a waitress. I use that example because that happened to me. A guy that I was talking about sponsoring me, and he had like 17 years, and then he's like really rude to this waitress. And I'm like, what the heck? I don't want to have anything to do with that. And people should pick up on cues like that, because whatever's going on inside of him is what he's transmitting into you as his sponsee, as the person that's listening, whether it's conscious or subconscious. Those things are contagious. You are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And sometimes, like you were talking about, you can have 4 people, and then the 5th can be books that you read. Then every single book you're reading, you are absorbing that knowledge. You're absorbing that thinking. You could be reading about, like, if you want to build a business, if you want to build a mechanic shop, you could probably read 4 or 5 books in a month and be beyond what most people are that are running a mechanic shop. And people take the value of reading and learning way down than they used to, right? And a lot of people, they used to say leaders are readers. And I heard this and I loved it. It's leaders are learners, right? You run a podcast, right? You can read, you can listen to a book on tape. You can also listen to these podcasts. Podcasts are the new thing, right? So Jared, before we hop off, what is your podcast? What is your website, and where can they find it so I can drop it into the comments?
So first of all, Adam, dude, thank you. I've run across a lot of people that have this limited resource mentality. The fact that you offer that I can kind of give a little shout out or a little plug on here, dude, namaste, bro.
Amen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you can, if you want some good content besides Recovered on Purpose, go to We Do Recover with Jared Miller. We've got 39 episodes in. It's me and a board certified addictionologist, Dr. Terry Sellers. And really all it is there's some knowledge content on there. It also is a great way. Again, we talk about surrounding yourself with positive people. Draw from the strength, draw from the knowledge, and draw from the experience of the guests that me and Vibe have on our shows, because we're bringing you people that are examples, right? You talked about being a leader. Well, a leader, if you break down the word, is a pathfinder, right? And it's people that have gone before you. They've found a path. And if you can humble yourself enough, if you can surround yourself with and mentally get yourself in these places, watch how your life changes. We Do Recover with Jared Miller. Jump on there, check it out, shoot me a DM. Guys, my life is recovery. I'm not too big for anything, man. When I get the chance, so I'm in school full time, I work full time, I'm planning a wedding, I do a podcast, I do a radio show, but I promise you, when I get time, I will message you back.
Amen.
Adam, thank you so much for letting me come on here, bro. Honestly, I can't even. My heart is full of gratitude, dude. You're doing amazing things, and it blows my mind that there's dudes out there like you that have such a strong message and such a strong passion for this thing. And just thank you for being a lighthouse, bro.
Brother, I appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for coming. I love meeting people like you, bro, that we have a similar, if not just the same mission of just helping people out there to know that there is hope, as well as people that are already in recovery. There's hope for you too. There's hope for you too. If you're in recovery, there's more. There is more.
So we're talking about books. Sorry, I don't mean to.
No, hit it.
Okay. Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. Okay. If you look at obsession, every one of us, if your life's been touched by the disease of addiction, you know what it's like to be obsessed. If you can take that obsession and turn it into something positive, like becoming a mechanic, whatever your passion is for life, grind on it just like you do with your addiction. And I promise you can be successful at whatever you choose to. Just be relentless. If we think about it, Vibe, when it came to our substance use, we would do anything and everything to get that.
Yes.
The takeaway from that book, Be Obsessed or Be Average, find your passion and be obsessed about it.
Yes. Yes. Go.
I love it, bro. We could do this for hours. I love you, bro. When are you going to come on my podcast?
I think we were talking about in 6 or 8 weeks.
Let's
do it. Weeks.
Let's get you down to sunny St. George, Utah, where it's 120 degrees.
Looking forward to it, bro. Looking forward to it. Hey guys, we love you all so much. Thank you for being here with us, hanging out with us for a little bit. And guys, we hope you got some hope and know that there's more wherever you're at in life. So love you guys.
Thanks again.